The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook. They're not just our friends. No. We believe in them. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook. Download their top-rated sportsbook app and use promo code RTRS. And brought to you by Big Barker Therapeutic Dog Beds. Get yours at bigbarker.com/Ricky. And of course, the official sponsor of the Corner 3 newsletter, Stateside Urban Craft Vodka. Get yours at statesidevodka.com. On the show today, a very special Thanksgiving episode. We imagine most people will not be going anywhere for Thanksgiving, so you sit at home and listen to the Ricky. On the pod, we will say farewell to our LeBron stopper, the three-point shooting, defending, do everything draft pick Zhaire Smith. We welcome Tony Bradley, who sounds like a former Sixer. And somehow welcome back Ryan Brokoff. A former Sixers player is available for trade. And a veteran, a veteran of perhaps the greatest Liberty Baller staff of all time, and the author of a brand new Sixers book that Ricky listeners specifically will enjoy, called Sixers Odyssey. This is it right here. Where's Ben Rivera himself, Dave Rueter. So Dave will be on for the second half of the pod. I'm actually looking forward to this. Dave have we had... Trying to think. So I'm trying to think of former. Well, we'll do this during the pod. I'm sorry. I'm excited to have Dave on. Before we get started, our Black Friday T-shirt sale is back, which starts on Friday. I'm getting emails about Black Friday sales today. It's fucking Wednesday. So the Black Friday sale is Friday. All the T-shirts will be 25% off, which make them like $15, which is awesome. We will have 4 new shirts. The City Line series, which is awesome. You can see them all on the Rights to Ricky Sanchez Twitter. The Maury-themed Just Riffin' Baby, the Carl Landry Record Club, and Tommy from Down the Shore themed Stay Free My Goose. And we are doing a new color of the shirt, the one with the names on the back. It is the color of the old Rockets logo, like a red and a yellow. It's really cool. So that'll be Friday. If you sign up for the newsletter, you will get the link right in your email box. So go to rightsrickysanchez.com/newsletter. Without any further ado, Amos and the Chef.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy who is going to try and eat his turkey through 2 masks and a face shield, Mike Levin.
That's right.
How you doing, man?
It's the best way to eat it. It's a really good. It's like how like filtering water and stuff makes it taste better. That's how I do it with everything. You just throw it through a mask, just shove it through one of the little pores of the hole in there, and it's good.
You know, I have to tell you. So during this 9 months of COVID, you and I actually just thought of this as I'm looking at you. You and I have we always live different lives, but my work has required me to, and I don't begrudge it. We needed to do it, but my work has required me to go to work every day. So there has been a sense of normalcy, even though at work, nobody goes near each other and we're all wearing masks. I've got up and got to work. Last week, because I was on a flight, I had to work from home and quarantine until I got a COVID test and returned back. And it was the first time during all of this that I actually had to just stay in my house all day, aside from going outside for some air. And then that was it. I don't know how you've done this for 9 months. After 1 week of it, I was fucking over it. Like I have obviously I had a sense of empathy for like everyone who has gone through this in a different way, but you specifically, because I talked to you for 3 hours a week, like I did not know exactly what it was like to be home all the time like that. I really didn't. I mean, I really didn't. I never had to be. And like my job required me not to be. So, I don't know. I don't know what to say other than like, I know better about your experience now, and I am empathetic.
Well, look, I'm very lucky that I am employed and can work on this show from home. It's like so fortunate in so many ways. Been very lucky this year, career-wise. Like so many people have gotten screwed in so many other ways, not just in every business, but like in my business specifically. A lot of writers I know that have shows have had to consolidate or just like not got picked up because it's just too complicated to have to deal with it and like all the protocols and everything. So I'm super lucky for sure. And the people like that have to go to work, whether they're working at a hospital or any healthcare facility, if they're nurses or doctors, or working in,
UPS
grocery stores
or grocery store.
And, so many things
or,
that are way more
station.
important than the jobs that we're doing.
Yeah.
And so I feel very grateful, but like, yeah, man, this is like it's a pandemic. Like it's a pandemic and you want to stay away from people. I haven't flown. I haven't gone anywhere. I've been in my 1-bedroom apartment this whole fucking time. Luckily, me and Alyssa love each other very much, because otherwise this would be a nightmare, total nightmare. Just being around each other all the time, but it's good. And we do like being around each other. So that's nice. But, and we only have one podcast microphone. We do like however many podcasts a week the two of us do. So that's what we got to deal with. But yeah, I mean, it's just like, I hope people are taking it seriously. I know people aren't. Like my neighbors across the hall are still having people over, and it drives me insane. They had like 8 people over last night laughing it up. Just like no one's ever laughed louder than my neighbors across the hall as they're just flouting COVID rules. Like, go fuck yourselves. It's very frustrating to see people not giving a fuck, as plenty of people are sacrificing their lives, not me. Doctors, nurses, et cetera, people I talked about. And I'm at least like one of the people that is like, hey, I've fucking stayed home this whole goddamn time. And it's just like to see other people being like, yeah, whatever. It sucks. I hate them. I hate those people.
Yeah.
And I get that it's hard, but like, I hate those people.
Yeah. And I understand that's hard too, especially, 9 months of it. And again, the first thing I said when I got to work on Monday morning and I sat down with the first show that I met with, and, it's become normal that we're in this, 4 of us are in a giant conference room, all spread out wearing masks. And it was funny when I had met with them from home over FaceTime without a mask, it was weird to be talking to them without a mask on, because I haven't talked to them without a mask on in 9 months. But what I said when I walked in there is like, we all were risking something by having to work, having to go out and go into the city and those sorts of things. I said, but man, I'll tell you that the people who are working from home during all of this and have not left their home, I was like, it is a whole other risk. It's a whole other thing that everybody's going through. But I 1,000,000% agree with you when I see.
And it fucks with you. It fucks with you just to see sports happen. Even though there's no fans, it's still like, well, those guys are doing it. So like, what am I? Am I an idiot just sitting here like a rube just doing it? But it's like, I don't want to get this virus that affects people in ways that we straight up don't know how it's going to for the rest of our lives. Like, we just don't know. People are like, running backs are freaking hospitalized, like heart bullshit. Like, I don't want it. I have no interest in getting it. It's one Thanksgiving. I'm happy to like see people from a distance and be masked and like get the fuck out of there. I'm not trying to do it. I don't remember. If you ask me what happened Thanksgiving like 2009 or 2014, I don't fucking remember. I don't remember. Who cares?
Can I tell you what's funny about it is I was talking about this at work because I was getting frustrated just, like looking at pictures of airports and like it's one Thanksgiving, it's just one. And I think about the number of times that people in my family had said to me, not like my immediate family, but, the extended family had said, one year I just would like to just sit home at Thanksgiving and skip it. It's just like, can we all just pretend that this is the year we all decided to skip it?
There you go. It's very hard, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. And we just gotta get through it. Just like take care of yourself. Like there's people in my family that are like, well, they're, you can't get it from like your friend. Like you can't get it from someone who like loves you. Yeah. It's like, that's not true. You don't love someone. You don't like, it's not like a show of strength. You're like, I love my aunt or whatever so much that I'm going to risk this to see them. It's like, no, it's the opposite. It is the opposite. If you love them that much, then you'll stay the fuck home.
Well, and I would guess you're actually far more likely to get it from somebody you love because you're far more likely to be close to that person for an extended period of time.
Exactly.
In any case, enough COVID talk. I just wanted to say that I had a new appreciation for what you've gone through.
1 week and he's done.
Well, it was, but remember, I've done it none. Like zero. So it was, and I want to say, like, it's not like I've been prancing around town or something. I mean, I'm going to work.
From the pictures I've seen, you're prancing.
Anyway, before we get going, I like this Apple Podcast review. We're at 2,787 5-star ratings. We get to 3,000. We're actually sort of getting close now. I have to read reviews 2,000 through 3,000. The subject line is, yeah, lick face. Which, by the way, is mentioned in Dave Rueter's book. In any case, I've been listening since before Cornblow was a sponsor. The one time I went on vacation and didn't listen to the pod, the lick face episode happened. I heard it the next episode and thought it was some small bit that I didn't need to figure out. Months and years have passed, and Mike is still beating it into the ground like the printer in Office Space. Others mention it like a mark of a true processor, but I still haven't taken the 5 minutes to Google it. I hate not knowing it, but it's so ironic at this point that I can't bring myself to take the red pill and look it up. That's the type of sadism you have to enjoy to root for the Sixers, while simultaneously hating them. Welcome to the cult brothers and soon your girlfriends that you'll drag to Indianapolis to watch a guy that had to pay a cover at Xfinity Live playing the NBA. 5 stars. So I do think it's funny that somebody who's listening for 5 years doesn't know that part. There was an important trade this week. We mentioned when we were talking about Dwight Howard that Morey tested us right away. And I really think that he tested the diehards in this way, because they were still, much like you, in our very last episode, you were talking about Zaire as a member of the rotation and the LeBron stopper. And he trades him for a fucking center, given the history of the last few years. Zhaire Smith, I want your reaction. Just want to frame it. Zhaire Smith.
Well, first of all, I didn't call Zhaire Smith the LeBron stopper. That's misrepresenting what I think. I still think this team is lacking in big wings that can cover those kinds of players.
Yeah.
If Ben goes down, they're in a lot of trouble. So I think over the course of the season, they'll have to rectify that in some way. The Zhaire Smith trade hurt me a lot, and I reacted strongly to it because it just made me think about the whole thing. Like, this was right after they drafted Zaire, right after Brian Colangelo got begrudgingly let go. They didn't want to do it, but they did. And it was we're not looking for a GM. We're just going to kind of ride it out with the sort of people we have here. And I was worried about it. And with the 10th pick in the draft, I'm pretty sure it's 10. They took Mikal Bridges, Philly kid, Nova kid, perfect fit. A guy I loved. I had him very, very high on my board. But then Phoenix offered them Zaire and a future first, the Miami first, which at that time was actually going to look really good. It later on didn't look as good
because it wasn't the double draft. It was going to be the double.
It wasn't
draft.
The double draft, and also Miami got significantly better.
Yeah,
so it'll be next year's draft pick is what they acquired and then shipped out in the Tobias trade.
By the way, we've had both general managers. Oh no, because Elton didn't make that trade. I was going to say we had the two general managers that made that trade, but it wasn't Elton. We did have Ryan McDonough, but that was the
well, there wasn't a general manager.
Yeah,
it was Brett. I guess
it was Brett and David Heller. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love Zaire. I thought I had him lower than Mikal on my board, but I loved him at Texas Tech. He was a raw player out of Texas Tech. And when you draft a guy like that and think about his potential, you're drafting him not for like he's going to come in right now and dominate. Not like, you know, the kind of player you're drafting when you take Zhaire Smith. And then I forget the order which happened first, but obviously he broke his foot and then had a terrible allergic reaction to sesame from the Sixers facility and lost 50 pounds and nearly died.
But before we blame the Sixers for a lot of things, Zhaire Smith didn't even know he had the allergy. So to that.
Has he said that?
Yes. He said he didn't know. They were unaware.
Okay.
They were unaware.
I'm sure it wasn't like some Sixers employee just like throttling, shoving it down his throat. But, and so like, obviously that took that year away.
Yeah.
And then this past year, he's recovering from that. It's essentially his rookie year, already a rookie year for like after an injury and for a raw player already. And it was half a season and then it's the coronavirus. And so like I know that his option was coming up. They had to decide whether to pick up his option. And it's not ideal to have to pick up a $5 million option for someone that you still don't really know what he is. But he's 21. He's been delivered.
Wait, real quick. I think you're skipping. Are you skipping a year or no? Was it only only 2 years? Okay.
2 years.
Yeah.
And one of the years he almost died.
Right. This is the third year. This is the third year.
It's coming into the third year.
Right.
And so I just... It just the whole thing. Obviously, I feel bad for Zaire that this stuff happened, and I feel bad. Like the thing that gets me most, and I say this a lot, like is just like logic. Logic really doesn't. It just fucks with me when there's just like you mishandle something so much and go like, well, there you go. And I get that it's sunk cost, and I get that Daryl Morey comes in and is like, well, he's not my guy. I didn't make that pick. I got to just go with what we have. But like the whole thing was just so poorly handled this whole time. Well, and you got to exercise. There's someone has to exercise a level of patience when all this stuff happens amid all this stuff, and just be like, hey, we're trading him for what I think he's a fine backup center, but to get him after Dwight Howard is frustrating. It's like another one position center that doesn't stretch the floor, at least as of now. And so it's just like, to me, it's like, well, what a pointless exercise. And I know the Pistons cut him, and I know that we'll see where he ends up, and maybe he has to go overseas and like figure it out, or maybe he never lands anywhere. And it's just like, this fucks up his career because like fit is part of it, and finding a place that will actually develop you and you can grow into a role or whatever it is. Like there's a chance that he just never makes it, and it's just like, it ends like that. But I think that the guy that Zaire was out of college, I firmly believe is an NBA player. And I believe that had he been not poisoned and had a chance to actually develop, and I think he will, but even if he doesn't, I still believe that like that person was a player, and a good organization would have made that player into something useful and would have exercised the patience required to do that. And it's like, some of it's just the chance that they were drawn, and Daryl just like he has to make the decision to give this team the most flexibility as possible. So I get it. But like on the whole, if you zoom out, like I'm just very unhappy with how everything about Zhaire Smith was handled. And I want him to succeed really, really badly.
I want to agree and disagree. Agree in that when they drafted him, they knew he was a huge project. This also accelerated in a way that maybe they didn't know it was going to accelerate. Well, maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. He was a huge project in that in college, he was basically a power forward, and he projected as like a 2 or a 3 in the NBA, just based on size and build and all of those things. And he didn't have the requisite skills to be that. So they knew he was a project. I would disagree, though, and I agree that it's frustrating that we never get to see anything really. I would disagree in their handling of it. Like they didn't poison him, and they also didn't break his foot. And when I watched him, you know, I saw enough of him. You know, he is not even close to ready. Is what I thought when I'm watching him. He looked honestly petrified. And that's not something that stats show. But when you're there and watching, he's super hesitant and has every right to be, given what they're asking him to do and what he had already done and what had happened to him. But he is, to my eye, very, very, very far away. And the only thing I would say about getting Bradley after they trade for Howard is that if you're admitting that the Howard thing is important because Embiid gets hurt every time, then you need a third guy, because you need two guys when Embiid gets hurt. So
yeah, I mean, I don't think that Tony Bradley is much better than Paul Reed. Okay. Potentially. And so I think if you can be like, hey, when Embiid's down, your backup center is Paul Reed, or you can then make a move if he's out for like any long period of time, where if you need another guy, then fine. I really, for sure he's raw, and for sure, like last year he didn't look as good as I wanted him to, but like, I think there's something with, I mean, he's just like, he's 6'4", long as hell, strong as hell, or at least he was coming out of Texas Tech before they did poison him. And I firmly believe it was intentional. I don't. And so like, I just believe in like the switchability, the ferociousness as like a bouncier Avery Bradley. Like he doesn't have, but his handle is very raw, but right. But like, yeah. I believe in that ability. Like, I think like he had good touch around the rim and from the line. Like I really, there was like a high IQ raw player in there. And whether it's like you blame him for some of it, or just the injuries, or the Sixers for not developing him, whatever it was, like it didn't work out. And that bums me out, because I really do believe in the full package, or at least I did initially when it was after the draft.
The thing I wanted to talk about with Tony Bradley real quick is that it does seem like he has what's the word I'm looking for? He wasn't a nothing prospect, right? He was a pretty big prospect coming out of high school, and he did play 50 games last year for Utah, 50 or 60 games, playing 12 minutes a game, and, fouls like every young big man does, but had a pretty strong rebound rate, like both offensive and defensive. Had basically 2 blocks per 36 minutes. And, you mentioned he's not shooting threes yet, but there's been, who used to be the Sixers reporter? What's her name? She was here like really briefly.
Camerado?
No, she worked at the Inquirer. Man, I forget her fucking name, but she was saying that he can shoot. He was just told not to shoot in Utah, that there's something there. So whatever, I can see it from both sides here. I understand your frustration, especially you as Mr. Prospect guy and Mr. Mm-hmm. Prospect guy who believed in him. But I also watched and realized that his position, if they don't have better players than him playing, then they're in trouble anyway, playing 2 and 3, I think. So, I
mean, they also the year after they draft Zaire, they draft Matisse to do essentially the same thing. I'm not saying they're the same player, but the roles would be the same.
Right. But Matisse is I think, much further along.
Much further along. He's way older. He's even though he's drafted later, he's still like 2 years older. I mean, Tony Bradley's not bad. I think he's super long from memory. I believe his wingspan is like 7'5" or like 7'7", like some crazy wingspan. And so I think, but he's not like athletic. He's not bouncy. So I think he can get rebounds, but he's not like a big putback guy the way Dwight is.
Sarah Todd. I'm sorry. I just want to remember her name. Yeah.
I think he's probably fine. He's an expiring contract. Maybe they'll see if he can play, and he becomes Embiid's long-term backup. Who the hell knows? I would rather have like an actual stretch 5, as much as I, more than anything, want to believe in secret shooting potential. I always do. Believe it when I see it type of thing. It's a little disappointing to me. But I mean, you look at the Sixers roster, and we can move into them re-signing former Sixer, never Sixer, Ryan Broekhoff.
He's not going to make the team, by the way.
Maybe. I mean, he's a good shooter. Like, he's a legitimately good shooter, and he's pretty big. And he, is very well rested because he didn't play. But we'll see. And he's Australian, which I know you like, and Ben Simmons kinship. But to me, it's just like there are. I look at the team and I think it is a very unfinished product as far as the bench goes, and I think that's probably intentional. Mm-hmm. I think it's we'll bring some guys in here. We'll bring in plenty of shooters. It's very clear that they're prioritizing shooting. which I like for sure. But it to me seems like there's still a little bit of a lack of like a backup point guard that can get to the rim type of thing. And now maybe
starting
that strikes
point
a chord
guard that can get to the rim.
And yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Although I think Shake with the right situation, I think it has like that, level of, shiftiness and length to make some stuff happen. He's not obviously a guy that you're like giving the ball and he's just like beating anybody off the dribble, really just using his length and craftiness. I think that might mean that Tyrese Maxey, they think as hey, he can play right away a little bit. I don't know. I liked what I saw. I really loved him at UK, but he still had a long way to go. So we'll see how much Doc wants to play rookies or whatever it is. But yeah, I think this is the kind of thing where Daryl is letting chips fall a little bit. Let's see how it looks, and then
see if he can get a deal
some
somewhere.
teams. Yeah, anticipating like whether it's a buyout market because they have what will seem like most of their mid-level to give to somebody in a buyout market, or make a trade happen, whether that's Mike Scott's salary or Terrence Ferguson or whoever.
Well, so the problem with the buyout thing is that those players are already getting paid their full salary. So they usually go where there is minutes. But
that's also here.
Yeah, could be. Yeah. Brokoff is an unguaranteed contract. My guess is he doesn't make the team. My guess is this was let's get him to camp because he couldn't come to the bubble with us. And that was unfortunate. And let's give him a shot. There's obviously a relationship there, but
maybe, is he going to be a situation? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say he's like, that's Korkmaz's role. Is he going to beat out Korkmaz for like the
that's what I was saying.
3-point shooter? Yeah.
Maybe distinctly. Maybe it's not like Korkmaz has a long history of illustrious success.
Come on, man.
I could see if Korkmaz is shooting like 32% in camp or something like that, and Brokoff's hitting everything, they're just like, well, both guys are a 1-year deal anyway. May as well go with the hot shooter. I don't know.
So I wanted to talk, before we get to Dave, I want to talk about the former Sixer that is available per trade. But a quick reminder, the newsletter will come out on Thanksgiving, but then we'll come out again at midnight with the T-shirt sale. So sign up for the Corner 3. It is brought to you by Stateside. No gluten in Stateside vodka, cold filtered, 0 carbs, no sugar, kosher, fucking distilled 7 times, statesidevodka.com. All right. Lou Williams. Apparently, there's a lot of, for a team that seemed like with the Clippers before Kawhi and Paul George got there, they were like the little engine that could. The teamwork, scrappy Clippers. They all seem to fucking not like each other right now. So it does seem like, per Mark Stein, that Lou Williams is available. It's on the last year of a deal, I believe. I think he's making like $9 million. How interested would you be in Lou Williams?
Super interested.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah. 100%.
Even given he's never been able to do it in the playoffs, right? So I guess my question would be, I'm sure there will be a lot of question as to what his value is. I don't think his value is nothing. I think he's valuable to somebody. Do you give up? Would you trade let's worry about salaries later, but would you trade Shake Milton? Would you trade Matisse Thybulle? Would you trade like an actual asset for Lou Williams? No.
I mean, he's an expiring contract, and it's another one position defender, which Seth Curry is as well.
No position defender, almost. At least Seth
Curry
much, is one.
For sure. I love Lou. It doesn't seem like the kind of thing that will work out. I don't know what, unless there's like an irreparable relationship with Lou and I guess specifically like Kawhi or PG. And I guess you could say the same thing with like Pat Bev. It's a new coach in there. We have the old coach that was maybe at least partly responsible for some of the strife that's happening. It doesn't, I mean, Daryl's traded for and then traded Lou before. I think
he had him in Houston. He had him in Houston, right? Yeah.
I think he'd be helpful for sure, but I don't think that there's a good trade to be made. It's a weird. Rarely do you see two contendery teams trade things for each other because they're both looking for the same stuff. It's not like he's like, the Clippers are like, yeah, we're really interested in Terrence Ferguson and like a second round pick.
Right. Would you, and you wouldn't trade next year's first? I don't think the Clippers would want to do that, by the way, or unless it's a 3-team trade, because what do they want with a pick? But I guess I'm just trying to get the sense of value, because I agree with you. Brian Jacobs, who Brian Colangelo's wife tried to hook up with whatever. He proposed. I'm sorry, like that's a whole thing. I'm not blaming Brian in this. It certainly wasn't his fault. He mentioned on Twitter, he was like, well, we should just trade Mike Scott and the Knicks pick next year. And I'm like, well, there's no way that the Clippers will do that. So I'm just trying to get a sense from you with value where you.
Yeah, I think it's a tough fit. I think he is a luxury, but not a necessity to have with a Seth Curry already on the team a little bit. Like they're a little too repeaty with each other. And next year's draft is shaping up to be very good. And I definitely wouldn't like waste that bullet if you're not going to make a pick next year's draft, which maybe you don't in the first round. Because you already have a bunch of young guys here developing. Maybe you want to use that for some trade or something like that. Maybe that's the piece that you're like, okay, this is going to be the thing that gets us off of Tobias or something like that. I don't think that Lou is the guy that I would do with this team. If another team wouldn't. If another team traded a late first for Lou Williams or something, I think that wouldn't be a dumb thing to do. I just don't think it's the right thing to do for us.
Yeah, I'm sort of in the same place in that. I don't think he is. I think he makes them better. I don't think he's the difference between them and a championship. So I tend to agree. If
the Josh Seth Curry trade didn't happen, I would absolutely trade Josh for Lou. That would be a pretty easy call for me. But because it's already happened, I don't think so.
A lot of people won't know our next guest, but I want. You got to listen to it, because having read this book, I don't know Dave that well, but having read this book, he really feels like a member of the Ricky, even though he hasn't been. So I would tell you to hang out for this. Before we get to Dave, the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast brought to you by Big Barker Dog Beds. My brother, my dog doesn't mind being quarantined because he gets to sleep on a Big Barker. He gets a bed that can literally hot take. Do you have a hot take? I hear the center.
I think your dog wants to come to work.
I tried that once, like 3 years ago. It did not work out well. He's not good enough around strangers. Big Barker is the only, if you love your dog, it's the only bed you can have your dog sleeping on. And we're not saying, like I am saying this because they're paying for an ad, obviously, but I'm mostly saying it because it's true. When Eric from Big Barker told me about the bed, told me how it, was made to support his former dog, Hank, who passed away. It was a big dog. He couldn't find a good bed for him, how it really supported his joints, how he got engineers to really make this bed. I didn't believe him until the bed came and I saw Rebel laying on it. I'm like, oh, your old bed, you were basically sleeping on the floor. It went right to the floor. This thing, you're 6 inches off the floor because it's real memory foam. Engineered by experts to do that, to support your dog's joints so your dog's healthier. That's it. Go to bigbarker.com/Ricky, bigbarker.com/Ricky. You get the Big Barker dog bed. You get 2 Process Pup patches. You get a handwritten note from Eric, and you get a dog who is going to be healthier because his or her joints will be healthier. It's not just for big dogs, any size dog. They have every size Big Barker, even the Barker Jr. for tiny dogs, but especially important, the Big Barker for dogs over 50 pounds, because up to 80% of them develop arthritis as they age. 10-year warranty on the Big Barker. The foam doesn't flatten, or they replace it for free. I think I've had my Big Barker for 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. It looks exactly the same as when I got it. It's amazing. 1 year at-home trial. If you don't like it, send it back. They'll even pay for the shipping, complete refund. Handmade in the USA. Big Barker dog beds.
Wow. All right. Our guest today is the great Dave Rueter, Philadelphia's own Dave Rueter, the Spectrum's own Dave Rueter, at Where's Ben Rivera on Twitter, former Liberty Ballers royalty, Sixers Hall of Fame. Wow. Once judged a dunk contest with Daryl Dawkins, I believe.
True, correct.
Dave wrote the book a Sixers Odyssey, which I have here. I believe I have the not for sale copy, which is pretty legitimate.
So do I. I have that as well.
And I'm really happy to have him on the podcast. Dave Rueter, how you doing?
Guys, thanks for having me. First time, long time. Excited to be here. Yeah, it's been a year. It's been a year, and I was like, what can make this even more crazy and more weird? I'm just going to write a book about Ron Anderson 30 years after the fact and take it from there. So
you have been doing, when I, in my previous life running libertyballers.com, the glory days of mediocre Sixers teams, I brought you on. I believe you were writing these. Basically, every chapter is a new guy,
Correct.
And you were writing "Remember this guy" as a fan post.
Correct.
And I was like, "Why is this guy funnier than I am? I don't like it. I'm going to profit from it and steal him and take credit for it." And so, how much different are some of these from the "Remember this guy" posts back in the Liberty Baller days?
Well, one, they're certainly longer, right? When I started to Remember This Guy, that was on my old blog, right? So I had a blog, where'sbeenrivera.com. I started at about 2008. A big success
and a huge success, right?
Marginal success. I would call it marginal success. Everyone in 2008 had a blog. Everybody had a blog.
Yeah, that was the Fight-ins era. That was when
that was the Fight-ins. Yeah,
Zoo with Roy. Yeah,
there used to be even someone would have a field of 64 just of Philly blogs, just of the Philadelphia Phillies. I could even crack that, Spike. I'm talking I'm in the NIT of Philadelphia Phillies blogs. So when I started writing these, I was just writing about Karen sports. And this was when the Phillies were in the World Series and just stupid stuff the Phillies played the Rays in Game 3 of the World Series. You can watch it on Fox. And if there was someone who had no idea what channel the Phillies World Series game was on, they're flicking through ESPN 2, maybe it's on the Deuce, right? It was this stupid stuff. And I wasn't getting any traction there. So one day randomly, I'm like, I'm worried about Charles Shackelford, right? Everyone knows Charles Shackelford. Charles Barkley famously said, I asked for Shaq, they gave me Shackelford. I'm worried about Charles Shackelford and see what happens. And one person commented, who I didn't know, which was great. And they're like, I remember him. And I was like, who is this angel from above that has come down and commented on my post saying, I remember Charles Shackelford too. I was thrilled. I was like, tell your friends. I remember Shackelford too. So that was kind of maybe I'm onto something here. Everyone's worried about the current Philly sports scene, and there were so many blogs out there. What if I write about these teams from my childhood? These teams from the 90s.
Backwards.
Go right, exactly. And a lot of teams from the 90s outside of 93 World Series, we were terrible. The Phillies were terrible. The Sixers, after Barkley, before Iverson, were terrible. The Eagles had their moments there, but for the most part, Rich Kostie, terrible. So I was just reading back all these bad teams. And what I didn't have to write about, so-and-so made this great comeback and they won the championship. I'm writing about all these guys where the Sixers were 27 games under 500 by Valentine's Day. So I'm able to have a lot of flexibility and write all these jokes and be funny about that. So that was kind of the genesis of how this all started there. I think what's different between the essays in this book is I'm actually doing the research. 12 years ago, I was just I think Shackelford scored 8 points against the Nets. Oh yeah, what the heck? No one's fact checking me. But when I started writing these halfway through, I was just man, what if I could actually pull actual newspaper articles, stuff written about those times there, and kind of how I started with that. And this is so random. Is that this is in the book there. I did a chapter on Warren Kidd. Warren Kidd was an undrafted rookie the same year as Sean Bradley. He ended up making a team. And I remember watching all the preseason games, just falling in love with this guy, Warren Kidd. Desperate for him to make this team, this underdog story, undrafted. He ended up making a team. Actually started the first 14 games of his career, undrafted guy there, outplayed Bradley. But anyways, I remember watching his preseason game vividly. I have this weird memory, not photographic.
You were how old?
9 years old, 1993.
Mm-hmm.
And it was October. And I know specifically, Mike, because the game was being played in Pittsburgh. I was watching a preseason game where the Sixers were playing in Pittsburgh. And I started reading about Warren Kidd. I keep going back to that one night preseason game. And I remember what if does my memory hold up? Why were they playing in Pittsburgh? So I actually was able to dig through some newspaper articles, and I found it. And the Sixers played the Chicago Bulls at the Pittsburgh Civic Arena, and I was able to read about a recap of the game. And I was like, I think I'm onto something. is not only if I combine my memories of me specifically remember watching that game, and I trying to tell my mom, like, Mom, like Warren Kidd, he's going to make the team. He's having a great preseason. Like, he's pushing the guys in camp. My mom was just like, wash your hands for dinner. Like, she didn't give a shit. And I'm just like, no, this is really exciting. And then to actually find newspaper articles like backing up that, those memories. Like, yeah, like Jeff Hornacek ended his ended his holdout, and Warren Kidd looked good. He got a real chance to make the team. And I'm like, yeah, Inquirer. I know. I remember that. And I think that's the difference, Mike, is when it was just my blog, it's just me having memory, writing jokes. But this book, I'm like, man, let's be authentic about it. So a lot of
you're cracking open the Jazzner's and really getting into it.
A lot of Phil Jazzner, right? All these great writers from the Daily News, the Inquirer, et cetera, where I'm using actual quotes about them, quotes about particular nights, particular stories, coupled with my memories. And I think that's the biggest difference there is like, it's like those remember this guys, but kind of on steroids, right? They're longer, they're more thought out, they're more researched, and it kind of pairs well with my memories of these players and also with the actual facts, information, articles I found from way back in the day.
For context for anyone who's listening, and Mike described the book is basically about random Sixers, forgotten Sixers, and which pairs nicely, and I want to go back like 2 steps. It pairs nicely with the history of this pod because the first 3.5 years of this pod were only random Sixers, basically, was like the, and AU, you talked to AU and AU did an article on our website and basically talked about that era of Liberty Ballers and you being a precursor to what we did. And I think, it's funny, the Ricky gets a lot of credit for like all of this, but when you look back in the way you guys were writing, the weird way, the sort of sarcastic, self-hating way, it was there. But the only reason that the Ricky gets more credit is because we haven't changed our people, right? The Ricky is still me and Mike from the beginning. So I guess, anyway, do you look at a long way of saying it? Do you look at what you did and what Mike did and what Jordan Sams, who ended up leaving the blog to go work out, did? What the blog was that
Tanner Stidel, Derek Bodner, that's the squad.
Do you see the connection? Like, do you look at that and go, oh, wow, like if it hadn't been for us, this whole thing wouldn't be exactly like it is right now?
Well, I do like to take all the credit for it. So yeah, I do think, right. But I know what you're saying, and you have a point there is, right, you guys started, during the Hinkie era when the teams were bad, right? And you realize you have to have fun with it, right? There's an end goal, obviously there's an end game, but like during that you have to endure a lot of losing. So you might as well have fun with that. I at least think the process was entertaining because we knew we were building up to something. When I started writing with Liberty Ballers and Mike, we were like thinking like the Doug Collins, like 25 articles about how Kwame Brown can like clog the middle, like just absolute trash and crap. And like a team that's like, just pencil them in for 32 wins and just move on. Like we weren't going anywhere. It's like you're picking 18th in the draft every year. So it's almost like what's the point of like, writing like a game preview for like Sixers Hawks in March and saying, well, Spencer Hall has to slow down Priest-Lauderdale somehow. It's just going to be a long night. Like who cares? Right? Who cares about stuff like that? So you start just kind of pushing the envelope. And I think that's why Mike was so good. And obviously he got such a following so quickly is that he wasn't afraid to be like, listen, the team stinks, but I'm a fan regardless. Like I'm going down with the ship, boring or not here. So I'm going to write some crazy stuff. And I think that's kind of why Liberty Ballers caught on. And I also think that certainly when Mike took over the site, the writers he was getting, like the Kyle Newbecks and the Mike Ballmans and the Roy Burtons and the Seamuses, like all these people actually, they legitimately like are write for a living. So it's like, it wasn't just like I was just like a random guy who's like, has like a boring finance job, like likes to write on the side. Like Mike was like, no, this guy's going to be write for the Ringer, this guy's going to write for the Athletic, Philly Voice, etc. So I think, a combination of Mike saying, write whatever you want, have fun with it. And then also Mike bringing a lot of talented people was really just like, all right, the team sucks, but boy, we might have something here. Like Liberty Balls may kind of develop that cult following.
And I'm glad this is becoming about me. I think this is nice.
Well,
that is what I was hoping for.
I did bring you Bauman. I want to say that. Yeah.
You did. You did. I think, Rich Hoffman as well in there. It's been a good bunch of them. Matt Carey as well for sure. The book is for me very funny because I know you and we're friends. but it also is, you have this a really good memory for what you were doing. I just remember, like, you know, obviously, like, Elliot Williams and hating Damian Wilkins and,
right.
you know, all 8 eras of Kevin Ollie and stuff. But I don't remember specifically, like, where I was, and the way that, like, the way you bring yourself into it is sort of like an amusing, oftentimes, like, teenage side character, just sort of like weighing in amid your daily life, I think is really interesting. Do you have that good of a memory of pinpointing, like, where you were when these things happened?
It is so strange. So I don't describe my memory as photographic. I'm terrible with names. I cannot learn anybody's names. If you introduce me, 20 minutes later, I'm like, what's that person's name again? But I'll remember what that person was wearing and, like, a joke they made or, like, a song that was on the jukebox when I met that person for the first time. I have a memory like that where it's these random details that are, like, in, like, the background that I remember. But if you ask me if that person's name was Bob, couldn't tell you. But I'll know that, like, Jim Blossoms was playing, like, on the radio at that moment when I was introduced to him, right? Like, crazy stuff like that there. And to me, I think I mentioned this in the article with AAU the other day there, is I always go back to the Roy Halladay no-hitter, right? That's, like, ingrained in my head, like, one of my favorite moments, you know, as a Philly sports fan. I'll remember where I was, what I was wearing, what I was drinking. I was drinking a lot, like, every detail of that day. And it wasn't so much like Halladay threw the no-hitter. Obviously, it was great. It was a 27-ounce, but it was like the event of it all. Like, the spectacle of it all is this, as far as where I was and what I was doing. And it's just like, I think that's what, like, resonates, you know, with fans, right? It's not so much just watching these athletes there, is that, like, yeah, I remember where I was and what I was doing. And I think that's when I was writing this, I was just, at first I didn't really want to interject myself into the story, Mike, because I'm just not that well known. Like, no one knows who I am. Like, I have this small following there. So it's like, why would anybody want to read about this random guy, Dave, for 76 chapters? But then I'm like, man, like, just like me, all these people are just fans too, just like everyone else. So if I had this memory of watching this random game, or, you know, watching James Anderson, you know, drop 36 on the Rockets there, why not bring that up? Because I'm sure a lot of readers can say, yeah, man, I remember that. I remember watching that game. And I thought, you know, like, I thought there was a value there of me adding my memories of that night or of that player, as opposed to just having this dry kind of, oh, so-and-so played at Georgia, you know, and then he played 3 years with the Jazz, right? So I kind of wanted to add that flavor, because I think the reader can kind of, you know, understand where I'm coming from.
I think obviously my whole life and career has weaved between music and sports, but it does seem like the way that you talk about sports is the way that a lot of people remember music, which is why their favorite songs were when they were, you know, 14 to 24, is because all these momentous things happened and they remember where they were. It paints a picture. And I think it's actually sort of similar when people ask me about the pod. I always say, yeah, it's about the Sixers, but it's mostly about Mike and I's experience with the Sixers. You know, right. Like it's that thing. And I think you write it in a really good way. Like, you feel it. And I always say, and this happens more with music writing, is that I don't have to like the band that they're writing about. They have to really like the band. And if they really like it, they paint that picture. And I think you do the same thing in the book in a really funny way. To be clear, you said, you know, you fact check. Yeah, there are facts in here, but it's not like a encyclopedia. That's not the point of it. You know what I mean? Right. It's about you and your memories of them. So I think it's really cool. I want to run, if I could. So I go through all of them. I would say I read about half of them at this point, but I had a list of players who I feel like are not forgotten enough to be in your book that you listed. Sure. Now, a quick comment. I want to know. Sure. Now, you admit basically that Hersey Hawkins is a little too good.
Way too good.
Isn't Jeff Ruland, given his history, not forgotten enough?
I think Jeff Ruland is attached to the Moses Malone trade.
Yes.
And he'll ever be attached to the Moses Malone trade. But I don't really focus on that. I focus on the comeback.
Right.
Wait,
12 games that he played. And the crazy, to Jeff Ruland's credit, this guy retired in 1986. It's like, this is like Mr. Perfect in the 2003 Royal Rumble, right? And wrestled in like 12 years. And all of a sudden, like, is that Jeff Rowland's music? Is this guy like coming back there?
and he should have had music. I think that would have made him more likable. I think the craziest thing, and I somehow didn't know the story of Jeff Rowland's comeback and what happened that kind of derailed it. And I almost don't want to
ruin it. Yeah.
I almost don't want to ruin it. It is a crazy story that I just had not heard before. It involves him being injured by people working for another team.
Let me ask you, Spike, if that happened today, if Joel Embiid was playing a game about to board the team bus and an incident happened, without giving any spoilers, how would Sixers Twitter react when it's just like, oh, cool, Embiid's out for an extended time, we're going to sign Amir Johnson to a 10-day, it should be fine. How would Sixers Twitter react to that? And that's why I included that in the book, because that story's so crazy. Like, even Mike is admitting that he didn't know it. Without social media, that probably just got, kind of dusted under the rug there. And I'm just like, man, if that happened today, Twitter would be bonkers over that. Like, the conspiracy theories would be like out the wazoo.
Spike would get like someone from like DHS on the podcast to like find a way to find these people, and Seamus and Jim would be at the whatever Utah airport like scouting to make sure, like it would be an all out assault on these people. It'd be a real public enemy number one thing.
And that was the reason, right? Is I think that particular story, a lot of people may remember it, a lot of people may not, because again, it happened in 1992. But I thought that was a story that didn't impact the Iversons or the Barkleys. It's like, man, I have to talk about that. And just even if like finding articles about like the trial without giving it away, just like Jeff Rowland versus, like I just feel like that was that story that's so crazy and interesting enough that I thought that deserved to be in the book. But he was an all-star in the 80s, admittedly. So.
I only want to ask you about one more of them. I'm just going to say that I do think Andre Miller, Willie Green, Rick Mahorn, Larry Hughes, all too famous. But the one that I wanted to ask you about was Armin Gilliam, because I think I read over it twice. You spell it both ways he spelled it, Armin and Armand, but I don't think you even mention anywhere in there that he changed the spelling of his name.
I refuse to. So I actually don't think I spelled it Armin with an O. He was born Armin with an O.
Right.
But everyone called him Armand. Or everyone pronounced it Armin.
Yeah.
And he just gave up. And he just goes, all right. And he changed his name. Just kind of like he was just tired of getting it pronounced Armin when it's really Armand. So before he passed away, at some point he changed his name to A-R-M-E-N.
Right.
I think I spelled it A-R-M-E-N the whole way. Mm. In hindsight, why didn't I just go, he changed his first name? I don't know. But I think it's just like a weird detail. Like, oh, by the way, he changed the spelling of his name when he's like 34. Go figure. I don't think if I had a proper segue for that, but it was born Armand with an O, and he changed it halfway through to Armin with an E. And the reason why guys like that and Hersey Hawkins there, on the cover specifically, right, you got Hersey Hawkins, Gilliam, and Clarence Weatherspoon. And the reason I did that there is, right, my favorite player when I was young was Barkley. The Sixers got Iverson. My favorite player was Iverson. But those three guys, they were my favorite players to kind of bridge that gap. And like, were they superstars? No. Hawkins was a one-time all-star there. But like, I was never like, oh, well, Jordan's my favorite player. Or Barkley's in Phoenix, but I love Barkley. Like, I never followed players around. It's just always what guy was in a Sixers jersey. So it's like, these teams were lousy, but man, like, that was my team. So it's like, who scored the most points on the Sixers in 93? Armin Gilliam, that's my guy, like, bring on the hammer, right? And I think, then it was Clarence Weatherspoon. Yeah. So I wanted to include those to kind of outline. It's like, sometimes, like, the team's lousy, but, like, I wasn't, like, jumping ship. So Hammer, Hawk, Spoon, come on aboard.
I think about the back of Clarence Weatherspoon's head so often. Just the way that it looked, the way that there was like maybe too much skin, or like he doesn't have much of a neck, so it's like tilting back. He's got like this roll. I think about it all the time.
I think it was
Any thoughts about that?
I think it's from the excessive pump fakes. I think that's what it was. It must be right?
It must be. So you don't write about the Sixers anymore. We text occasionally with Tanner in a group chat, charmingly known as Derek's Got the Recap.
Yes.
And I wonder how you feel about the Sixers now over the last couple years. Like, what is you're living in a I don't want to say golden age, but for the Sixers over the course of their history, like a silver age, kind of.
Right. The Raptor series, that one set me back, right? That one hurt. That one stung to have that jumper by Kawhi go down the way it did there. It's weird because it's almost like when I was a kid and the Sixers would be like 17 games like under 500, but I'm just like, oh man, if they can go 6-3 on like the Christmas West Coast swing, and maybe the Pistons, have a rough patch, we're like 2 games out of the playoff spot. Whereas like 25-year-old Dave's like, tank, you got to tank. You started season 0-2, we got to tank. Bench everybody. And now it's like the Sixers, for the most part, are pretty good, right? This year was like a complete debacle, obviously, the sweep there. But like, geez, they were a 6 seed. They must won 60% of their games there. But it's just like now it's almost like you're always wanting more. It's like the Sixers were terrible when I was a kid. I was like, oh, but man, what if they just made the playoffs one time? Now the Sixers are pretty good. I'm like, God, they're so far away from a championship there. So like, I don't know if I'll ever be happy. But in the grand scheme of things, they're obviously very competitive. They have 2 superstars, in my opinion. So I'm certainly just like, yeah, it is what it is. I'm certainly kind of. I'd rather go down with Embiid and Ben just because they're my guys, right? Like I'm certainly not one of like, you have to trade one of them or, Ben's got to do X, Y, and Z. I think it's so rare, especially now today's NBA, that you can have like these guys on your team for an extended amount of time. It's like once free agency hits, like all these guys are jumping and forming these super teams here. So it's like Ben and Joe, will they ever get to the championship? I don't know, but like I'm willing to stick it out and find out because like those are our guys. Like we drafted them. And I do feel better with Morey. That goes without saying compared to I feel better than I did like a month ago.
I wanted to talk to you about something you wrote about the Eddie Jordan era, which is very close to my heart. Before you do, you're going to have to – we're going to talk about DraftKings real quick. Can you hang out?
Yep.
Well, all right.
For sure.
So our presenting sponsor is DraftKings Sportsbook. More odds have come out for this year. So Sixers winning percentage over under. Wait, hold on. No, this is hold on. Sixers winning percentage this year is over under 59.5. What you got? It feels like an easy over.
Do you think? 59.5 would be what? 72 games about 40
in an 80 game season. That's basically 50 wins, right? I mean, I think. Hold on, look at us math majors. I'm easily going over. Yeah,
I think it's probably over. I think that they will be a good health provided a good regular season team.
I think to me they've taken them back to when they were good that one other time. It's like they're the Redick team again. A Redick team. I can't give him that much credit. Anyway, wow. Holiday season in full swing. Pro football, college football, playoffs. DraftKings Sportsbook is where you bet. Sunday, DraftKings is ensuring all new customers are covered up to $100. That's right. You bet they cover risk-free Sunday. All of Sunday's action, they cover you up to $100. And we're a 6-point dog to Seattle, which.
That's free money. Jesus Christ.
On top of that, you got to check the odds boosts every single day. Check the promotions every single day. DraftKings, safe, secure. You get your money right away. You deposit right away. It's awesome. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code RTRS when you sign up. Get this can't miss offer. DraftKings Sportsbook insuring your Sunday bets up to $100. That's right. New customers bet Sunday risk-free up to $100. Use the promo code RTRS when you sign up. Limited time, DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, must be physically located in Pennsylvania. In partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino, risk-free coverage, paid out in site credits, restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. So, as I've mentioned on the pod a bunch of times before, I actually grew up a Knicks fan and was a Knicks fan until my mid-20s even. And it was when I moved back to Philly and was working at a music radio station that I got a press pass to Sixers games during the Eddie Jordan era and started going to every single game and blogging about it because they gave me a pass. The Jason Capono chapter captured for 2 things. First of all, the fact that he was supposed to be the greatest 3-point shooter of all time and couldn't get off the bench. And the other thing was the noisy rims, the rims echoing through the Wells Fargo Center. I will never forget. Never in my life.
At first I thought I imagined that. But I actually look back, I wrote something for Liberty Ballers. It wasn't about Jason Capono, but I referenced Eddie Jordan and the rims. So I was like, okay, in 2020, I can't remember if there was microphones on the rims during the Eddie Jordan era. But obviously, like in 2011, I was pretty sure that there was microphones on the rims there. And that's within the statute of limitations, so I'm going to go with it. So I'm glad that you're verifying it. And I think it's because nobody was there.
Yeah.
So like especially like these 7:30 starts, and it's like if there is a crowd, they're a late arriving crowd. You know how the traffic is on the Schuylkill there, and there was a couple missed jumpers, and you heard that clang in there, and it's just like you're making dinner, just like what's that noise? And it's funny of all the years of like all the different coaches, Doug Moe, John Lucas, that Eddie Jordan, that one season was just what a debacle. And like Jason Capote, number 72. Who was in charge of his PR? Who signed off on that? I hated everything about that jersey number.
I would agree with you. We watch a lot of bad Sixers basketball. The Eddie Jordan year was the most disgraceful year of coaching and basketball I've ever seen. I've never seen anything worse than that. It was the worst I've ever seen.
Like the Princeton offense,
tough.
Come on, no one's getting fooled by that. Everyone's seen a pick before.
Yeah.
What is your ideal? Because you have like the normal way to consume sports, which is I want my team to win. But watching it with like a level of childlike joy at the sort of minutia of like this guy. Do you prefer say this Sixers team never wins a championship? This current iteration of it. Would you prefer a consistent 50-win team that like loses in the second round, or like a horrible team just filled with remember this guys?
I mean, I've seen a lot of losing the last 20 years. It is nice to win 50 games here, but that's my ceiling is the second round. That's all you can give me here. I can't.
That's all I'm giving you.
I can't get one Eastern Conference Finals by dumb luck. I mean, I think I'd still choose that, right? Because how will we stink so bad with our current. With Embiid, I can't have Embiid be on a 22-win team here and be able to reconcile that. So I'll take the second round losses and I'll enjoy beating up on the Nets and in the first round, I guess, in the 3-6 matchup, right?
That's fair. Who on this team or in last year's team is the most remember this guy player?
Oh, geez.
If Ryan Broekhoff had not re-signed, which even he still might not make the team, but a guy that signed for the bubble and then didn't play because his wife got the virus it feels like you could do a lot with that in 3 pages.
I actually think that Sixers Adam tweeted out the Sixers re-signed Broekhoff. I bet you forgot he was still on the team. And I even said out loud, I was like, yeah, I actually had no idea that he was on the team. Because I feel like
you respond to all tweets verbally.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's just I'd assume they're in the living room with me, as I'm reading them there. But I was just we had him? Oh, yeah. Oh, right, he didn't play. Oh, he's still on the team? So that's a really strong, I'd probably say him. That's a really strong. I wouldn't know if I would be able to get 1,000 words on him, but I would damn sure try.
Who's the most remember this guy coach in Sixers history?
Gosh, I mean, John Lucas, when I was looking back on it, is the amount of time that he went public trashing his own team was unreal. The stuff I found between him and Sharon Wright was just I was almost I was even awkward reading this. I was can somebody cut John Lucas's mic off here? I don't think you should be saying this about Sharon Wright here. I'm embarrassed for him 25 years later. And the fact that, gosh, I think it was around April or May, maybe even later that in the summer, it was after Brett Brown was fired there. And somehow, John Lucas is John Lucas is interested in coaching. Sixers going to take a look at him.
Yeah.
And I was like, John Lucas III? Or the original John Lucas? And I think he's player development for like the Rockets or scouting or something like that. And I actually had to Google John Lucas to make sure it was the same one. And I'm just like, here I am, like writing this book, like on the down low, like reading all these John Lucas articles. And now it's like 2020 and it's like Sixers going to take a look at John Lucas. And I go, has anyone talked to Sharon Wright? I don't think he'd endorse him. And also Spike, Doug Moe, right? Doug Moe did even make one season, notoriously would end practice early because him and his wife like to see the afternoon matinees. And I guess when your team's that bad, like why not? Just 40 minutes and let's get him out of there.
You know, you mentioning John Lucas, Richard Dumas is not in the book, but Mike would have I don't know if you were probably too young for it. You would have fucking loved Richard Dumas. Like Richard Dumas in 2020, the idea of what Richard Dumas was, even though he was addicted to crack, was you would have fucking loved Richard Dumas.
He was actually edited out, Spike, and the reason why I didn't include him is it was hard for me to write about Dumas in a way that was right. He had this huge drug addiction, and I was having a hard time kind of strutting that line between like trying to make it funny, but then also like giving like the skeletons in his closet there. I was having like a hard time reconciling that there. So unfortunately, that was the reason why he didn't make the cut. But he would have been tailor made right for this book there. But it was hard to. That was like a tough line for me to straddle. I was like, you know what? I'll have to lip Willie Green it against, even though Spike may disagree with it. So sorry, Will.
So you have 76 chapters about these guys. Each chapter is about three-ish pages. Who is the guy you would want to read his chapter the most?
So I would say, as far as if you're new to this, I think the Rex Walters piece, right? Because that combines some personal stories, right? Like, you know, your brother and you playing Nerf basketball, and I start with that, and that's admittedly
love that chapter. That was the first chapter I read when you sent it to me a few months ago.
And that was
iconic chapter.
That was a lengthy part there because again, it's talking about a player, but it's also kind of weaving in like my personal memories and a couple personal stories. Tim Perry certainly jumps out at me there. The slam dunk contest there because my best friend. The little brother always had a birthday party on All-Star Saturday. We'd watch all the slam dunk contests there, so that one jumps out. I think my personal favorite is actually Greg Graham, right? A random reserve guard, and the reason for that is that the story kept changing because when I would go through like a list of players, I'm like, okay, I'll write about Greg Graham, like. And I read about a memory or like I remember he scored 30 or so one game there. And I would Google them, always make Basketball Reference as the first search, Wikipedia, his Wikipedia page. But when I Googled Greg Graham, it was like the first hit was a Greg Graham jersey for sale. And I was like, what? How the hell is there a Greg Graham jersey for sale? Like these were like in like commercial production there. So I clicked on it. I was like, oh my God, it's a Greg Graham jersey. So and I go back to like, researching him and I'm like, I got to buy this jersey. And I was like, if I don't buy it now, I know someone's going to find this Greg Graham jersey, and then 2 days later, opportunity missed. That same thing happened when I tried to buy a Hersey Hawkins Bradley University jersey. For some reason, I don't know why I didn't buy it at the time. I passed on it, and a week later, it's gone. And it's like my life's biggest regret that I don't have this Hersey Hawkins Bradley University jersey. So I buy this Greg Graham jersey, and I'm like negotiating with this like eBay seller. And I'm like, I think the chapter should be about that. It's about me like Googling this random player, finding this jersey for sale in 2020 and buying that. And then when I received the jersey, I'm so excited. I'm like, and you'll see it right there, actually. That's the Greg Graham jersey. It's Greg Graham number 11. And I'm so excited. I'm texting all my friends. I'm like, look at this, $49.99, not even shipping and handling. I got a Greg Graham jersey. And my one friend goes, wasn't Greg Graham number 20? And I was like, holy shit. I'm writing a book about the Sixers, and I just bought a Greg Graham counterfeit jersey. Like I might as well have bought in like Jerome Brown, like number 7, a number 7 Jerome Brown jersey. So I'm like frantically Googling like what number was Greg Graham, and Basketball Reference said he was number 20. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I just bought like a counterfeit Greg Graham jersey. This is humiliating. Like I'll never be able to show my face in public. I'll be sleeping on the couch. My wife's going to disown me. And then I start writing about that. Is my essay becomes I buy this jersey, and then I think I have the wrong jersey number. But Google Images like showing these pictures of Greg Graham wearing a number 11 jersey like, on his basketball card. So I'm like, why did Greg Graham change jerseys? Like, what sort of like marketing scheme was this guy cooking up where he's like changing jersey numbers every 3 months? So now I'm like, literally spending
Greg Graham City Edition jersey.
so then I'm like spending like 3 weeks. Like I would write another chapter or research other guys, and I'll keep going back to this Greg Graham jersey situation. And I was trying to hunt down Greg Graham. I tried to find him on like LinkedIn. I tried to find him on Twitter. Like I wrote to like an Indiana University like basketball historical society. I'm like, this is Randall. Greg Graham changed jersey numbers in 1994. What the hell happened? What do you know? Like crickets. So like I finally think I pieced it together, but like that essay, I think it's so organically it took on a life of its own because I found this jersey like during like a search. I buy it. I think the jersey number is off, so it's like I think that one it was so unexpected, right? As far as it wasn't kind of just vanilla cookie cut or me researching the guys, writing about a certain game, or it's just I was changing that and editing that in real time as I was getting more information, and or my friends were telling me that Greg Graham was actually number 20.
And I say this a lot, but like anything on the internet before 2009 might as well be like the 60s. Like it's so far, you can't find anything about it. It's just like, who knows if it's true? Some guy wrote it. The website is total nonsense. It's hard. It's really the Wild West of discovering information. So I'm very upset that the Historical Society of Indiana Basketball did not respond to.
And it's funny you mentioned that, Mike, because there's even one story I have in there which has nothing to do about the players, but I wrote about Casey Shaw. Casey Shaw was a second-round draft pick, I think, in 1999. Played for the Sixers for a few months, and he scored one basket in the NBA. So my essay about that is I'm going to try to find video evidence of this guy, Casey Shaw, scoring his only 2 points in the NBA. And I preface that by telling a story about how my sister was on Double Dare. Double Dare used to be filmed in Philadelphia. So for Christmas, like 10 years ago, my brother and I are trying to hunt down this Double Dare episode. And like I'm like at that point, like you're way past YouTube, Mike, especially like 2009 or 10. You're talking like GeoCities, Angel Fire, like you're in the dark underbelly of the internet at that point there. So like my Casey Shaw chapter.
Anything could be porn. Any second it's porn.
Double Dare. Well, you got to click here to find out, right?
Yeah, it's really tough.
It's a leap of faith there. So like the Casey Shaw chapter, it starts off with like me trying to find this episode of Double Dare. And like the same idea is like way back when you don't know what you were finding on the internet and who you had to talk to there.
So I had one more question for you, but before I do, I wanted to let everyone know, like, there's a lot of people that listen to this that are Process Era fans. So there's a lot of Process Era players or just pre-process. So Gerald Henderson, Carl Landry, Hollis Thompson, T-Rob, Thomas Robinson, Lavoy Allen is pre-process, but it's right pre-process. Right. Lorenzo Brown, Brandon Davies, KJ McDaniels, Tony Roten, James Anderson, Henry Sims, Kendall Marshall, and Furkan Aldemir. There was one quote about Lavoy Allen that you did not, I don't think you included, from Doug Collins, which was basically Doug Collins amazed at how little of a shit that Lavoy Allen gave about anything. Like he said like, I wish I lived my life like him, not giving a shit. Right. And title of the chapter as like KG Stopper was fucking perfect. It was perfect.
There's actually, and I think towards the end of that there, and this is actually something I found from Mike in his Liberty Baller days, where in Lavoy Allen, when he played so well against that Celtics, I think he was a rookie. But his second year, he really kind of tapered off there, and then like that was kind of the rose fell off the bloom there. But I remember
they played him over Vucevic.
Yeah, and again, Spencer Hawes was getting owned by Garnett, so they would bring Lavoy in. That's did a pretty good job against Garnett. But there was a quote his second year, and the reporters asked him like, what have you learned from like year two, like from your rookie year? Like say any cliche under the world, just taking it day by day. And the guy's like, I haven't learned anything. I guess like I don't have like rookie duties, And I remember like reading that, like I didn't remember that, but I found that article and I found like Mike like writing a post about it. And I was like, what the hell is Lavoy Allen thinking? Why would you say that? Like, and it's funny that you tell that story about Doug Collins saying that Lavoy didn't give a shit. And I was like, that seems like to be like the theme for his career there.
So Lavoy Allen went to Pennsbury High School and graduated, I believe, the same year I did. And there was a basketball tournament at my high school that I called as the like color commentary guy. And I was as long-winded on that as I was on this. And so it's Lavoy Allen and his sophomore teammate, Dalton Pepper, who played at West Virginia and Temple. And so I think I felt a kinship with Lavoie in the sense of like, I expect better of you because we came up together, kind of.
Do you have, as somebody who has known Mike for a very long time, something that a story about Mike or something about Mike that somebody listening to this podcast would never have heard or not know?
Well, I mentioned this in the post by AU, but obviously,
yeah, and I have some friggin' quibbles.
I think that was pretty fair. As you know, my memory's pretty strong. That effort at the free throw line.
I remember you getting called for a travel that you were still upset about.
I'm pretty sure that pivot foot was set, so I think that was I think it was a bad officiating there. So right, Spike. So when I first met Mike in person, right, you're doing all this on the internet. There, we met in Vegas for the Summer League. I think it was 2011. The Sixers weren't even playing in Vegas. There, we were in like that crappy Orlando league that like no one ever showed up at, and like were no fans.
The Sixers
there.
did not come to Las Vegas Summer League, and 4 writers from Liberty Ballers.
The entire Liberty Baller squad was up there, like waiting to like shake down Ed Stefanski. And we ended up.
I did see Ed Stefanski that Summer League, and I think somebody got pissed off at me for Andre had. I was like, why'd you sign $1? Something like that. I was like, but he did shoot 39% from 3 last year. And someone was like, why'd you say that? You let him off the hook. It was really solid.
That was like our big claim to fame back then. There, it was like we were a little bit small time. Obviously, you've gotten a bit bigger in the last decade or so. But when we played, we ended up like organizing a game with like ESPN's True Hoop blog. I don't know how it was, but like, it was like very official. Like there was like legit officials. I think it was at like UNLV's like basketball team's like practice court or something. Like it was like a pretty like legit like, and like people were taking like really seriously. I remember I was playing blackjack till like 5 a.m. I did not have basketball shoes. Jordan gave me a pair of his Airwalks. I was wearing like a Hacksaw Jim Duggan t-shirt. Like I was not prepared. Like I was like, somebody put me on a DL. Like I need to like.
Well, because you were like, we're going to Vegas. We're watching some bad basketball. You thought you were with your current wife then, but you were not married yet, right?
I was engaged, right? And I was like, I got like 3 days to like, gamble as much as I can here. And after the first day of Summer League, I was like, I'm good. Like I've seen enough of like some really bad.
Well, because you were like, I think you're like, I'm going with some young guys, and like I'm obviously not going to do anything, but like these young guys are going to get into some shit, and it's going to be fun and whatever. And basically, we just watched 12 straight hours of basketball every day, and you're like, I made the wrong choice.
Man. Like after like the first game of the day one of Summer League, I was like, oh my god, I got 10 more hours of this. Like what's my exit strategy? How do I get to a blackjack table? Like how do I get to the strip there? But even like even that, because like there was no like Uber then. It's just like I gotta find like a payphone. Like I gotta find like who was like a number for like a yellow cab company in Las Vegas. Like it was like a big to
like pick me up at the Denny's over on the strip somewhere. I'll just be there. You guys watch your basketball. Get me there. I'll be laying down on the blacktop of the Denny's.
It was just like, but you could see like you guys were gonna do it for a living, right? Like as far as you guys were so invested, I was just like, the secrets aren't even here. It was kind of cool to see the first game or two, but then I'm like, oh my god, I got 3 more days of this. Like I gotta get an early flight. But so I remember you guys like picking me up, and so we're like on the way to the basketball game there, and I was surprised at like how serious like people like SB Nation wanted to be True Hoop. Like it was a pretty big deal. I also remember Jordan Sams not abiding by the make it take it, meaning if you make a jumper, you got to give me the ball back. Like what kind of was he raised by wolves?
Yeah.
Who does that?
All pickup is make it take it. Yeah.
Spike, if I hit an 18,
no, it wasn't pickup. This was in warm ups.
Just shooting around.
Okay. Oh well, then you definitely get the ball back if you make it. If you're shooting around.
Spike, I'm trying to find a rhythm here. Yeah. Right? I'm on 2 hours of sleep here. Like if I'm feeling it, I'm feeling it. And so I think actually Mike and Tanner were certainly the best players. Tanner could play, and
Tanner was hitting shots, yeah, for sure.
And Mike was just brutally bad at the foul line. Like this was like Chris Dudley-esque. Like, and he was on the foul line all the time. God, he was like Dominique Wilkins, like 1989. Like he was on it. Like
I wasn't hitting shots.
Like 28 free throw attempts. Like I was just like half my time was watching Summer League or like Mike Levin shoot foul shots. It was a weird.
It was a tough time for my stroke. But I remember I was covering a guy who was then a True Hoop blogger and is now a scout for the Thunder. And I did a good job defensively, which in my mind then made up for all the misses from the line.
I actually thought that guy dropped 32, but I guess maybe my memory.
Come on. But yeah,
I mean,
it was a fun time, and you have never been back to summer league since.
No, I think I'm good. I'll let you guys. I'll let Sixers Adam cover that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, I missed the chance where I would actually enjoy it. At this point, like I haven't gone, and at this point, it's too popular for me to go.
It's such a huge deal now. Yeah. Back then, it was just like
it was the Wild West of very weird stuff. You could just walk by. Dave obviously saw Bobby Jackson at the blackjack table multiple nights in a row. Started talking to him. Asking if he should.
That was a highlight.
Split.
That was a highlight
for sure.
The book is awesome. It is called A Sixers Odyssey: Exploring the Forgotten Players of 76ers Yesteryear. Love the cover art. Where is there a place besides Amazon to get it? Like, where's the best place to get it?
Any like online distributor there. It's like obviously Barnes and Nobles, bookshop.org. You can buy it there. I bought a copy there, right? Proceeds from that go to helping independent bookstores. So it's not in any physical, brick and mortar stores there, but as far as any online retailer, you should be able to find it.
I'm looking to see if Midtown Scholar, our friends at Midtown Scholar have it. But yeah, buy it somewhere besides Amazon if you can.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm legitimately proud of you for doing this.
Thank you.
This is a big deal.
I need to get. Does Glenn Levin? How do I send him a copy?
He's gonna get it. He's gonna buy. He will proudly buy a copy on his own. He would want to buy it and crisply look at it and hold it in his hand.
I'll think John Cusack like outside his door, like Dr. Levin.
That's right.
He buys tickets to our events, so he can certainly buy your.
That's very true. And I just want to apologize to MJ for you ignoring your son for the first year of his life while you wrote this book.
Like she's a real superstar there because gosh, it's like, and I kept it under wraps at first because it's just like I don't want to tell people I'm writing a book and then not finish, and then people like months later say, "How's the book coming?" Oh, Phillies look pretty good, right? The bullpen looks good. So I kept it under wraps at first, and then like my wife was just like, "Dave, like you've been coming to bed like 3 a.m. for like the last like 3 weeks. Like, is there an addiction? Is he an addiction?" And no, because I was just like, at first I was like, I don't know. I'm going to start writing it, and I'm going to see if I can get in a flow where it's like, all right, maybe like I'm going to build momentum. And then about halfway through, I would say for 4 months straight. Every day for 4 months, I probably worked on it for at least 3 hours at night after my son went down to bed. And like after a while, though, because I'm so tired, right? My son's waking up. I have a toddler waking up around 5, 6 in the morning. There, I'm going to bed at 3. Like I'm dragging. I'm still working from home. You have a regular job there. And my wife's like, "What the hell have you been doing down there? Like, do we have a problem? Like, is there I'm like, no. I'm writing this book about the Sixers, but I'm like writing back all these like random guys, and she's just like,
she thought you were done with this. You're like, we stopped doing Liberty Ballers.
Like,
what do we?
I thought you and Levin aren't really talking anymore. I thought, and I was like, I'm writing about all these random Sixers, and then she's just like, well, wait, you got to write about Iverson. I was like, no, I'm not going to write about Iverson. Everyone always writes about Iverson.
It's the perfect sales tool. All of the Sixers you haven't heard of. That's how you get it.
It was so funny because yesterday I actually looked on like it was like number 7 for like one day in like top selling basketball books, and like behind like LeBron James like children's book he wrote. Like this is completely normal. Like LeBron's writing a book and like I'm here like talking about
two authors.
Buckner. Yeah, right.
Well, that's really good, and I hope everybody buys it. And proud of you, man. That's good stuff.
Guys, thanks so much.
Yeah. Hang on 1 second. We just got to say goodbye because we all got to say goodbye at the same time. If you're listening to this, happy Thanksgiving. And you're obviously listening to it. Thankful for everybody who listens to the pod. And we'll talk to you this weekend. Yeah, we will. This part of the pod is actually mentioned in the book. So are you down with TTP?
Dave?
Of course. You know me.
Don't fuck with
Oh,
me.
he did it wrong.
Nailed it. 100%. Hole in one.
If you don't fuck with
Of
me,
course you know me.
then I won't fuck with you.
Oh, solid.
If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me,
Then I won't fuck with you.
But if you fuck with me,
That's a plan B.